It's 2:17 a.m. Chris Dalton crouches inside a Gulfstream's cargo bay, surrounded by vacuum-sealed packets containing $5.2 million in Syndicate cash. His hands shake as he stuffs bundle after bundle into his equipment bag. Outside, footsteps approach. Torres and his security team are boarding the aircraft. "Fuel contamination in cargo bay," Chris shouts through his radio, triggering the emergency protocol he's rehearsed in his mind. The toxic vapor alarm screams across McCarran Airport's tarmac. His heart pounds as he replaces the final cash bundle with aircraft manuals, fingers working with surgical precision despite adrenaline coursing through his veins. The cargo bay door is closing, 30 seconds until Torres reaches his location. Chris hears voices in Spanish, angry, suspicious voices. His radio crackles. "All personnel evacuate immediately. Fuel vapor explosion risk." He slips on his emergency oxygen mask and crawls toward the exit hatch, dragging $5.2 million in stolen money. Through the small window, he sees bright flashes on the runway. Syndicate members and casino security in conflict, exactly as planned. In the chaos, nobody notices the fuel technician in safety gear running toward his truck. Chris throws the money into his fuel truck and drives across the active runway, using emergency vehicle privileges earned over 12 years of perfect service. Behind him, the Gulfstream sits empty, its cargo bay reeking of aviation fuel. By the time anyone realizes what happened, Chris Dalton will be a ghost. But this perfect execution didn't happen overnight. It was 6 months of meticulous planning that pushed an ordinary airport worker to steal from some of America's most dangerous people. Chris noticed the weight problem during routine fuel calculations. 3 private jets consistently showed discrepancies, claiming light passenger loads but requiring center-of-gravity adjustments like they carried cargo. As senior fuel technician at McCarran International, Chris managed $200 million worth of aircraft monthly, invisible but essential. During mandatory fuel system inspection, Chris found modified aircraft compartments with extra weight-bearing reinforcements. While performing fuel tank pressure tests, he noticed one aircraft sat lower than specifications indicated. He calculated the hidden weight at approximately 400 to 500 pounds, exactly the weight of cash in denominations fitting aircraft storage. Cross-referencing fuel delivery receipts with flight manifests, Chris discovered systematic overpayments for fuel never delivered. Someone used fuel invoices to justify large cash transactions. The loan shark found Chris that same week. "You got 2 months, fuel boy," Tony Marcelli cornered him in airport parking garage. "After that, we start breaking things that don't heal right." Chris owed $340,000 to 3 Las Vegas casinos. His ex-wife had moved to Phoenix with their 12-year-old son after gambling destroyed their marriage. His $67,000 salary seemed pathetic while handling jets worth $50 million each. Chris used his fuel expertise to analyze the weight anomalies systematically. The pattern emerged: heaviest loads on Columbia to Vegas routes. During maintenance, he discovered cargo floors reinforced for heavy loads, hidden compartments accessible through fuel panels, professional modifications costing $200,000 per aircraft. Chris calculated 500 pounds of currency equaled $2.2 million. The aircraft transported massive cash amounts. Night shifts had fewer guards. Security cameras had 15-minute gaps. His senior status bypassed checkpoints. Chris planned the smallest possible theft. He identified Citation X carrying estimated $800,000 during Thursday night fuel delivery. Creating fuel contamination alert, requiring extended cargo inspection, he timed operation during security patrol gap, targeting a single cash bundle. The security guard returned 3 minutes early during Chris's test. Chris quickly closed the cargo panel and pretended to calibrate fuel monitoring equipment. "Everything normal here?" the guard asked. "Just running pressure diagnostics, found a minor leak," Chris responded. The guard left, never knowing $50,000 had disappeared. Chris documented everything as legitimate maintenance. His years of perfect service made questioning impossible. Next morning, Chris found a GPS tracker hidden in his fuel truck. Someone was monitoring his movements. Chris's first theft went undetected. For his second target, he planned during shift change, created fuel pressure irregularity, and stole $180,000 in 22 minutes from Gulfstream N847 VT. Security Chief Torino arrived unexpectedly during the theft. Chris relocated to exterior fuel panel. "Found a potential issue here," Chris said calmly. "Just verifying everything's safe." Torino inspected cargo but found nothing. Chris's replacement packages looked legitimate. Chris paid Tony $230,000, reducing debt to $110,000. Additional surveillance appeared on his truck. During reconnaissance, Chris triggered a silent alarm. Security converged while he hid in his fuel truck. Security was hunting for suspicious activity. Chris planned during security shift briefing, targeting Torres Resort Falcon 7X. He created emergency fuel diagnostic, removed 14 cash bundles in 8 minutes. Torres conducted surprise inspection during the theft. Chris switched to fuel pressure testing. Found a potential leak that could ground your aircraft, Chris explained. Need 10 minutes to verify safety. Torres waited outside while Chris completed the theft, then thanked him for preventing a dangerous situation. Chris paid Tony the final $110,000, clearing all debt. Sandra called about Tommy's surgery, $85,000 for specialist treatment. Airport security investigated all fuel records, but found nothing linking Chris to suspicious activity. During his biggest theft yet, $980,000 from Gulfstream N847VT, security burst into cargo area while Chris replaced final cash bundle. "Get back! Fuel vapor explosion risk," he shouted. Security retreated while Chris completed repairs. Investigation closed with no findings. Tommy's surgery succeeded, but insurance denied follow-up coverage. Sandra needed $125,000 for specialist care. Chris learned security planned to use marked money to catch the thief in 72 hours. Chris learned about the monthly super run, carrying $15 to $20 million from 3 casino groups. Next run scheduled for Thanksgiving week, single aircraft would carry consolidated cash. Sandra called again. "The medical bills are higher than expected. I need another $25,000. Chris calculated this score could set him up for life. $15 million meant complete financial freedom. Torres Resort Falcon 7X arrived during holiday skeleton cruise ship. Chris found $18.7 million in vacuum-sealed packets, more than he ever imagined. Torres arrived early to supervise departure. Chris removed $5.2 million while maintaining normal procedures under direct observation. Chris learned Torres knew money was missing and was bringing Colombian enforcers to handle this personally. DEA and FBI launched investigation into aviation money laundering. Torres brought Colombian Syndicate enforcers to eliminate the theft source. Sandra called. "Some men came to Tommy's school asking about you." "I'm scared, Chris." FBI analysis revealed Chris's theft exposed $200 million annual operation involving 6 casinos and 3 criminal organizations. DEA offered immunity. "Help us bring down the network and you keep what you took." Syndicate enforcers found Chris's accomplices. Chris received video with message, 48 hours to return our money or your son faces consequences. Chris discovered the marked money plan and realized he had one chance. Execute the biggest theft during the trap itself, using chaos to escape with everything. This was all or nothing. For 3 days, Chris studied the convergence patterns. FBI surveillance teams arrived at 2 a.m. for setup. Cartel enforcers typically approached from the south entrance at 2:15 a.m. Casino security used the main terminal, arriving 2:10 a.m. If he timed it perfectly, all 3 groups would collide while he was already inside the aircraft. Chris prepared his most elaborate deception yet. He pre-positioned emergency fuel containment equipment around the target aircraft, creating legitimate reasons for his presence. He studied the airport's underground maintenance tunnel system, a network of service corridors that connected all terminals, known only to senior technicians like himself. The psychological pressure was crushing. Chris hadn't slept properly in weeks, surviving on coffee and adrenaline. Every time his phone rang, he expected to hear that Tommy was dead. But backing down now meant losing everything: his son's future, his freedom, his only chance at redemption. Thursday, November 23rd, Thanksgiving night. The airport ran on skeleton crew, exactly as planned. 2:14 a.m. Chris activated his fuel truck's emergency response lights and approached Torres Resort Falcon 7X. The aircraft sat isolated on the private tarmac, loaded with the consolidated super run money. Through his radio scanner, Chris heard FBI units taking positions around the terminal perimeter. 2:15 a.m. Chris connected his fuel lines and opened the cargo bay using his override codes. Inside, vacuum-sealed packets of cash filled the entire cargo space, $18.7 million in organized stacks. More money than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. 2:16 a.m. Chris began loading bundles into his equipment containers, working with surgical precision. His hands stayed steady despite knowing that discovery meant death. Each packet represented freedom, Tommy's future, a new life. Vehicle engines echoed across the tarmac. Torres was arriving early. 2:17 a.m. Headlights swept across the aircraft as multiple vehicles approached from different directions. Chris realized all parties were converging simultaneously. FBI, cartel, and casino security, all hunting the same target. Torres and three armed men exited a black SUV 50 yards away. Colombian Syndicate enforcers emerged from another vehicle, tactical equipment visible. Casino security arrived in marked cars, not knowing they were walking into a confrontation. Chris was trapped inside the cargo bay with $12.5 million stuffed in his equipment bags. He could hear Spanish voices getting closer, Torres shouting orders to his men. The FBI was moving into position, but they couldn't see the cartel arriving from their blind spot. 2:18 a.m., footsteps on the aircraft stairs. Torres was boarding. Chris made the decision that would either save his life or end it. He activated the aircraft's fuel system emergency alarm, a piercing siren that indicated catastrophic fuel vapor leak, requiring immediate evacuation of all personnel within 200 yards. Mayday, MAYDAY, toxic fuel vapor leak, Chris screamed into his radio. All personnel evacuate immediately. Explosion imminent. The alarm shrieked across the tarmac. Emergency lights strobed red. Chris pulled on his emergency oxygen gear and crawled toward the cargo bay exit, dragging millions in stolen cash. 2:19 a.m. Chaos erupted outside. Torres's men ran from the aircraft shouting in Spanish. Casino security scrambled for their vehicles. FBI agents, thinking their operation was blown, began emergency extraction procedures. But the Colombian enforcers didn't retreat. They engaged Torres's fleeing men, believing they were being betrayed. Bright flashes lit up the tarmac as tactical equipment activated in the night. "Nos traicionaron," one Colombian screamed. "They betrayed us." Torres screamed back at his men. "Stop them all. No witnesses." The FBI agents found themselves caught in a three-way confrontation they didn't understand. Radio chatter exploded. "Engagement in progress. Multiple suspects. We need backup now." Chris slipped out of the cargo bay during the confrontation, invisible in his emergency safety gear. To anyone watching, he was just airport emergency personnel responding to a fuel crisis. Tactical sounds echoed overhead as he loaded the stolen millions into his fuel truck. 2:20 a.m. The FBI finally engaged, thinking they were in the middle of a syndicate confrontation. Radio chatter exploded with confused commands. "Engagement in progress. Multiple suspects. Request immediate backup." Chris started his fuel truck and drove directly across the active runway, the one place no pursuit vehicles could follow during an emergency. In his mirrors, he watched the three-way confrontation rage behind him. Torres engaging with Colombians, FBI agents taking cover, casino security caught in the conflict. He reached the maintenance tunnel entrance as sirens wailed across Las Vegas. The tunnel stretched for miles beneath the airport, a hidden world where a fuel technician could disappear forever. 2:25 a.m., Chris abandoned the fuel truck at tunnel entrance Charlie 7 and vanished underground with $12.5 million in cash. Above ground, police and FBI swarmed the scene, finding bodies but no money, no evidence of the real crime. Torres had betrayed his Colombian partners, trying to eliminate all witnesses and keep the money for himself. But the money was already gone, stolen by a man they'd never suspect, the invisible fuel technician who knew every secret the airport held. While enemies confronted each other, Chris Dalton disappeared into the Nevada desert, carrying more stolen cash than any single thief in aviation history. Federal investigation revealed massive money laundering operation through Chris's theft evidence, but Chris himself had disappeared completely. Anonymous $125,000 donation appeared for Tommy's medical treatment. Sandra received note, "For Tommy's future, from someone who cares." Torres and syndicate leaders were arrested after the runway confrontation. Federal prosecutors used evidence from Chris's thefts to convict entire network. Chris Dalton became aviation industry legend, the fuel technician who stole $12.5 million from criminal syndicates and vanished without a trace. Beach bar in Costa Rica. A fuel truck driver with a new face pays cash for drinks, watching sunset over Pacific. Sometimes the only way to beat the system is to disappear with their money. So here's my question for you. Do you think Chris Dalton was a criminal who stole millions, or a working-class hero who exposed corruption and took what was rightfully stolen from society? Hit that like button if you believe sometimes you have to break the rules to serve real justice. And subscribe if you think the biggest criminals are the ones wearing suits instead of coveralls. What would you have done in Chris's position? Walked away and let the syndicates keep laundering money, or taken your share like he did? Let me know in the comments below.